All right, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And just to put it out there, I was born and raised in Jos. So it's proud to be back home, but not as somebody who is participating, but somebody who is actively contributing to the growth of technology in Plateau State. Standing on all existing protocols, I recognize all our distinguished guests from government, the private sector, academia, industry colleagues, partners, and my family who have supported from day one. Thank you for honoring us with your presence. They say time is money, and we believe you are able to get maximum value in return. But before I talk about technology, let me start by asking an important question. Do we truly believe in Africa? I've given this talk across different stages, both locally and internationally. And one thing has come to my mind is that I've seen there are just two people in a room, especially when I'm speaking to people from Africa. We have those that believe in Africa and those that don't. You can't be on defense, you have to be on one side. And so throughout my journey, I've asked myself a few questions. And I think it's important that we also ask ourselves those questions. Do we truly believe in the transformative power of technology, not just as consumers, but as leaders? Do we believe that one day Africa can truly be united with a GDP to rival that of the world? Do we believe that our youth can be the greatest workforce and that the freedom of one African nation means little until all of Africa is free? Do we believe that through technology, the son or daughter of nobody can actually become somebody? And this question isn't just for government, academia, or the business people, but it's to everyone sitting in this room. This is for those who are hopelessly optimistic about Africa and those who believe in a brighter future. Technology is only a tool. It can never surpass the strength of our will. We can't talk about the role of blockchain in Africa's future if everyone seated here doesn't even believe in Africa. And I do believe that's why I'm standing here. To play my part in ensuring Africa's future is authored by builders, by believers, and by us all. I would remind you continuously as I go through my presentation that if you do not believe Africa has a future, then there's no point in talking about the role of blockchain in Africa's future. The talk is the role of blockchain in shaping Africa's future, and it's hinged on three key things: ownership, trust, and real-world impact. So before I dive into the technology, I would like to talk about why Africa is uniquely positioned. So we hold untapped social capital. And I'm sure a lot of you can see that through community saving groups, where without, legal restrictions, we're able to put money together. And a lot of us, that's how some people were sent to school. We call it locally ajo. And because of that social capital, we have been able to do amazing things as a continent. We also talk about the saying that it takes a community to raise a village. In Africa, we are communal by nature. And so what that means is we all take responsibility of what other people are doing. We take responsibility of other people's children. We take responsibility of our entire neighborhood. We have a reputation for resilience. And you can see that despite all the challenges we have faced as a country, we are still making progress. We are still ensuring that if the structures are not there, we as private citizens are putting our best to do so. Secondly, we're not waiting for permission. We can already see that with Africans contributing to the global productivity quota. We're contributing to open source projects, we're ensuring that things, and we're building the reputation of Africa as we do so. We don't need anybody's permission, and we are taking our place in the global context. And finally, we now have access to cross-border financial instruments. In 2021, I worked with a company, and our major issue was not just focusing on the corridors between Nigeria and America, or Africa and America, or Africa and and Europe. Our biggest concern was how do we stimulate intra-African trade? How could somebody discuss and buy a service or pay for a service with somebody living in Zimbabwe? And I doubt if I ask you now, can you send money to somebody in Zimbabwe? 99.9% will say no. True or false? Can you send money to somebody in Namibia? Can you send money to somebody in Lesotho? So we have seen that even within Africa, we have that unique potential that if we can stimulate intra-African trade, we're going to see a lot of productivity. And that's why I believe we are uniquely positioned. I'm going to talk about blockchain. And we promise that today is not going to be technical. We promise that we wouldn't give all the core technical concepts that make you a bit confused. So I'm going to walk you through the evolution of the web, because that's going to give you more clarity on the next conversations we'll be having. So we talk about Web 1. So Web 1 was from the early 90s to the year 2000. And majority of the people here might have not been born. I might be wrong, but the majority of people here might have not experienced what Web 1 was. But Web 1 was static, it was centralized, and there was limited access, which means not everybody could actively participate. Only those who were part of the administrators, and that might be a technical term, but that's for people who were governing these systems. They were the only ones allowed to put out information. So you couldn't refute that information. All you had to do was consume that information. For Web 2, we got the ability to read and write. And that was very simple. With the growth of social media from the early 2000s to about 2010, you had the ability to now collaborate. We had the ability to discuss. We had the ability to, it was defined by user-generated content. And that's where the term digital neighbor came from. Now, the term digital neighbor was coined from the fact that you and your physical neighbor might be living together, but the person that you chat with, you have a closer relationship with that person. So that was what coined the term digital neighbor. And that came out from Web 2. Because for a lot of people, their marriages started from being able to chat with somebody in another place. Web 1 didn't give us those privileges. But now we are in the age of what is called Web 3. And I know when people hear Web 3, they don't usually have the context of why the 3 is even there in the first place. But the Web 3 is that is built on the foundation of Web 1, which allowed us read, Web 2, which is read and write, and Web 3, which is read, write, and own. So now Africans were able not to just read, write, and own. We're able to now get digital assets. And we're able to own a piece of it. And we're able to ascribe economic value. So if you understand the fundamentals of digital assets, they are subject to the laws of demand and supply. If everybody says something is valuable, digital assets give us the ability to ascribe a value to whatever it was. And you can see that with the price of Bitcoin at the moment, the price of Ethereum. The only thing that is stabilizing that price is not inflation, but is belief we as a collective think that's what is worth. And so Web 3, which we're going to focus now, has given us the ability to participate in the financial system. So from identity to assets, records to incentives, the blockchain is basically a public tamper-evident ledger, open to scrutiny, impossible to change. Our focus today will be on the digital wallet. It's not just for payments. And I know for a lot of you who have heard cryptocurrencies, the first thing that comes is, how can I get money? But what cryptocurrencies have become, or what digital wallets that house them, the technology that houses these currencies, has now been used to create reputations, has been used to create proof that that person has either participated or performed a transaction. In Africa, blockchain's promise is never the technology alone. It's the fact that a student in JOS can have a verifiable degree, a cooperative can transparently split their profits, and a government can track all their payments to displaced individuals. I say this again, it is only meaningful if we believe that it's for us and not for someone else. Africa can lead, and I say this any stage I get to speak. And my main thesis is that we're not burdened by legacy technology. And what that meant is we could adopt blockchain faster. We're a mobile-first society, and so we could adopt blockchain faster. And I go back to my former point with the former company I worked with. Besides, we failed, so I'm used to failing. But what happened is that when blockchains came, the biggest positive for me and what I've seen over the past few years for blockchain is how it has spurred intra-African trade. And I gave my example of not being able to transact with somebody who lived in Zimbabwe or Namibia, but as I speak to you, I can go about that now. That can happen in seconds. And so there's a research I was looking at, and it was focusing on how cryptocurrencies has even influenced traveling within Africa. A lot of Africans didn't travel because we didn't know how to transact when we get there. But what the blockchain has done is it has created trust. Because I'm chatting with somebody who is also a contributor to the global project I'm working on, but lives in Zimbabwe, it will increase the chances that you might go to Zimbabwe. Remember, your digital neighbors, they are usually people you have either had a physical interaction with or somebody has introduced you to them. But the blockchain has placed that proof of trust. And when you can prove that this person has a verifiable track record, it's easy for us to scale these communications. And so we see that with a mobile-first society. I talk about reputation. And when we look at the wallets, it has helped us build reputations. A lot of us who are familiar with the Web3 companies or global companies that have worked in Africa, they are only working with us because we have built a reputation. We have built a reputation that they can fact check every time, and it cannot be tampered by the public, and it cannot neither be changed in secret. And lastly, look at our talents and builders. From the different initiatives that are going on in the continent, from training to incubation to acceleration, we're definitely taking the lead, and I say that comfortably. When it comes to the emerging markets conversation, Africa is definitely taking the lead. The new reality now is we have people with skills, but we're thinking about inclusion and safety. How do we make this a safe technology for everyone? In the beginning, we all heard that there were so many scams. And so that kind of deterred people from the true promise of what blockchain could do. We're having the infrastructure now, from the technology, identity wallets, hubs and blockchains that are interested, physical infrastructure. So we have learning places, we have innovation zones. And then lastly, policy. So we can say that Africa is finally taking a positive stance towards ensuring that blockchain gets to the masses. And we know that the role of the government is to protect its masses, but at the same time, innovation would always be ahead of regulation. What does the future look like? So for blockchain and regulation adoption to happen, we need to regulate with trust and not fear. And what that means is government is going to have to sit down and ask us the tough questions. How do we battle test the technology? How do we ensure that these platforms turn into standards? How do we ensure that the last mile or the person is not abused by this technology? And for somebody who has done a bit of work in digital safety, it's interesting that we have answered a lot of these questions. But sometimes there is a fear in approaching new technology because people fear what they don't understand. And that's why it's important that we regulate with trust and not fear. We're looking to start up initiatives that solve real problems. One of the issues, and if you came yesterday for the technical workshops, was Web3 has a UX problem. And for UX problem means a user journey problem. It's always so difficult. It's always so clunky. But the easier we make it for any single person to adopt or use Web3, then it makes it easier to be used on a large scale. We have so many issues in Africa. While that might, in some contexts is a good thing, in some contexts it's a bad thing. But this enables us to use this technology to solve these problems, because we are the ones that solve our problems by ourselves. We're looking at recruiting and training believers. I believe that I would get more value spending time with a room of believers than with a room of naysayers. And while the task is hefty and might seem impossible, we've actually made a lot of progress in the last few years. We don't do this because tech is fashionable, but because we believe Africa deserves systems that work for us and the world. I leave you with this. When trust is programmable and opportunity is shared, Africa doesn't wait for the future, it defines it. My name is Pishikeni Tukura. I serve as co-founder of IIHQ. We are unlocking innovation across technology, infrastructure, and community. If you truly believe in Africa, let's build together. God bless Plateau State, God bless Nigeria, and God bless Africa. Thank you.